Welcome to the Ultimate Sports Podcast. The second guest of the night is a writer and editor for Pinstripe Empire and writer for the Scarecrow. He also has a podcast called Too Much Podtar to talk all things baseball. Alex Kielar, how are you doing tonight?
I'm pretty good. How about yourself?
I'm good. All right, let's go start with the first half awards. I think you may have done this on your podcast, but I didn't listen to that particular episode. So, who's your AL MVP?
Well, this is a pretty easy one. It's, obviously a lot of Yankees fans are going and saying DJ LeMahieu, but, he's their team MVP. He's definitely not on the same level as Mike Trout. Mike Trout he's just on another, planet with the way he's been throughout his whole career, even.
Yes.
He definitely leads right now in MVP so far.
Yes. He's my selection too. Yes, the Angels are out of the race, it looks like, but Mike Trout's having arguably his best season yet. So he's my choice for the American League MVP. Do I think he wins it? We'll see. But I really think at this point, Mike Trout has to be it. What about your National League MVP? There's two great contenders for it, and there's a case to be made for both guys. Who's your pick?
Yeah, this is definitely a close one with Bellinger and Yelich. It's both of them have had really phenomenal seasons so far, and my pick would be Bellinger right now. I think he's having a slightly better season. Obviously, it's kind of hard to say for once you get through the season, we'll have to see and wait and see who ends up having a better season. But they're both definitely having really good seasons. Yelich, after winning the MVP last year, he's picked up where he left off and hitting over 300 with 30 home runs. And Bellinger also has 30? I think he has 30 home runs, right?
Somewhere close to. I think Yelich is more though.
Yeah, Yelich has 31, I think, actually. But the numbers are really close. It's definitely a tough one to choose, but right now at midseason, I'd go with Bellinger. Just a slight advantage, probably less than a point for that. So.
Yeah, I would go with Bellinger too, because he has some of better numbers than Yelich, not in terms of home runs, but batting average, he's better. I believe he has more RBIs as well. And the Dodgers are a better team than the Brewers. I think that factors into it a little bit. So if the season ended today, I think Bellinger would win it over Yelich. But I think Bellinger has just been sensational, so I agree with you there. How about the American League Cy Young? I initially had somebody, but I had to change my pick. Who's your choice for this?
For this one, I'm going with Justin Verlander. Obviously, Charlie Morton for the Rays is also definitely a good choice. We did for the Scarecrow. We actually did a poll on that, and four of us went with Morton, and three of us went with Verlander. So it was definitely a tight race for us too. So it's tough to choose. Morton's been the ace of the Rays staff so far this season as they signed him in free agency. But Verlander, I think, he's having a little bit of better season, in my opinion. He has more strikeouts. He's leading the league in he's leading the league in strikeouts with over 120, I believe. And he's also leading in WHIP with a .81.
Verlander.
And then also his batting average against is around I believe it's 160, something like that. So he's he definitely doesn't allow many hits. Well, he actually does lead in hits per nine, but he definitely prevents people from scoring and stuff like that. So I know his left. I was looking at his numbers earlier. His left on base percentage is around 70%, I think, something like that. So that's definitely a solid thing to have. Yeah, so Justin Verlander is my American League Cy Young so far.
I initially had Verlander, but I crossed him off and put Charlie Morton. Morton really has been, other than DJ LeMahieu, the best signing of the offseason, and he's really helped that Rays rotation. He's been their ace. kind of took it from Blake Snell has regressed to a point where I couldn't even imagine he'd regress that badly. But Morton's been incredible. I believe does he have the most wins so far, if I'm not mistaken?
I think so.
I think he has the most wins. He has the lowest ERA. And that, to me, puts him ahead of Verlander, who's given up the most home runs this year, which, to me, is the most dumbfounding stat of the year so far. And Verlander, like I said, was my choice. Probably will win the award. But I have to give Charlie Morton some due. And plus, I wanted to go a little bit off the board with my Cy Young pick and take Charlie Morton over Justin Verlander. And Morton, to me, has only really had one bad start all year, and that was against the Yankees in Yankee Stadium in May. And Justin Verlander's had a couple head-scratching starts to me. I feel like he didn't have a great start against the Rangers. I think that was early in the year. He was good against the Yankees, but that was like a Astros domination from an offensive standpoint, so Verlander didn't have to do much in that game. But Verlander will probably win this award, but I'm going to give it personally to Charlie Morton just to be a little different. How about the National League Cy Young?
The National League as well is a tight race with Ryu from the Dodgers and Scherzer from the Nationals. They're both having phenomenal seasons, and it was a tough one to choose from for me too. It was definitely close between them. Like I said, with the other ones, there was probably less than a point difference between the two when I was making the decision. But I think I picked Scherzer. I think he's in the lead right now, but it's definitely things can happen as you move on with the season. But I just think that Ryu's kind of having a lucky season so far. His batting average balls in play right now is actually 266, which is kind of shows you that he's kind of getting lucky there. If some of those balls found holes, then he'd have a probably higher batting average and possibly the higher ERA too, if any of those runners scored. So, but Scherzer's ERA is 2.30, which is pretty solid. He has 181 strikeouts so far, .98 WHIP, and 9-5 record. So he's been, he had that game where he had a black eye, and he pitched with the black eye. So what did he go? He went pretty far in the game too. What did he go? 7-8 innings.
Yeah.
So he shows he can be like so dominant, and I think he's leading right now for that Cy Young, at least right now.
So you took Ryu. I'm going to take Ryu as well, although Max Scherzer's been on some incredible run. But I just got to give Ryu his due, just like I gave Morton his due. Ryu has really stepped up and pretty much been the Dodgers' best pitcher in the first half of the year, and I'm just really impressed. Do I think he'll regress in the second half of the year? Probably, but I'm going to give him his due. He led the National League in ERA at one point. I don't know if he still does, but
yeah, I believe he does.
Yeah, but I just got to give him his due. He really has helped that Dodgers rotation, and really his sort of resurgence has really kind of not make the Dodgers, I guess they won't go out and get a starter then, because he's really turned into that third above average pitcher that a contender would need down the stretch of the season and in a playoff run. So I'm going to go with Heijin Ryu. How about the American League Rookie of the Year?
This is probably another pretty easy one to make. Decision to make is definitely not hard like the other ones were to make. But with the Rays, I'd go with Brandon Lau. He's been having a really good season, especially at the beginning. He was off to such a hot start and kind of came out of nowhere in these Rookie of the Year ratings. He kind of like Vlad. Everybody was coming into the season thinking Vlad Jr. was going to be at the top of those rankings, but he hasn't really panned out just yet. Well, I think he will have a huge second half and end up winning the award. But for right now, Brandon Lau leads, and he has over 270 batting average. He's at how many? I think he has like 15 home runs, or 15 or 16 home runs, driven in around 50 RBIs. So he's definitely a solid pick for Rookie of the Year so far. And he's been one of the Rays' best hitters as well. And another name I could throw in there is John Means of the Orioles. He's been one of the only bright spots of that Orioles team. You know how bad the Orioles are, so he's been pitching really solid and definitely having a breakout season. So those two names are definitely ones to look out for as we move on in the season.
Yeah, I'm with you on Brandon Lowe. He's my pick, too. I had Michael Chavis written down as an honorable mention because he's pretty much helped that Red Sox offense since he got called up. I remember they were sub 500 very early in the year and everyone was writing him off. He got called up and really helped them turn it around a little bit. And they're still not even in the playoffs if the season were to end today. So, shout out to Michael Chavis. You're right about Brandon Lowe. He really has helped that Rays offense and he's putting up some good stats, about 15 home runs, 50 RBIs. I expect him to possibly get to 30 homers if he stays healthy. So I'm with you there on the Brandon Lowe pick. How about the National League Rookie of the Year? I think this is the slam dunk of all slam dunks.
Yeah, this is definitely very easy to pick. You got to go with Pete Alonso of the Mets. And he's just been having a phenomenal season, first half of the season. And he just won the home run derby the other day. After having 30 home runs in the first half, and he's on pace to get close to Judge's rookie record for home runs at 52. So, kind of scares a Yankees fan him actually breaking that because it's definitely a possibility. So, but he's also batting .280 with 68 RBIs, over 1,000 OPS. So, he's not only the best NL rookie, but he's also one of the best hitters in the league right now. So.
Yeah, no doubt about it. It has to be Pete Alonso. He is much better than even I anticipated. I thought that he was going to be a big reason why the Mets would actually be a good team this year, but we'll talk about that another day, how messy their bullpen is. But he is the lone bright spot on that Mets team other than Jeff McNeil, who also made the All-Star team. But Alonso's rookie season has just been sensational. It's very reminiscent of Judge, but I think Judge's was better because Judge had a better batting average at this point of his rookie season. He was hitting over 300, and then he had that 6-week slide, which dipped him into the 280s, and then Judge just absolutely had that great September. So I'm going to go with Pete Alonso. I think this award, is the only one that I think it's fair to say, barring an injury, is over. So how about the American League Manager of the Year?
Yeah, this one is, I think it's a two-man race right now with, I'm trying, as hard as I can, not to be biased with the Yankees, but I think it's between Aaron Boone and Rocco Baldelli of the Twins. With Aaron Boone, he's been able to manage this team throughout all these injuries they've had. I don't even know how many injuries at this point. Can't keep track of how many they've had anymore. But all these second tier players have been able to step up and fill in. He's put all these guys in all these situations, kind of thrown them in. He's managed them the right way. And obviously, we see on Yankees Twitter all the time people complaining about his bullpen managing and all that stuff. But he's actually been doing a really good job, in my opinion. I don't know, it's just the Yankees fans' nature to complain about something, to put the blame on somebody. But I think he's been fantastic. And then with Baldelli of the Twins, they weren't really expected to be this good at all. Their pitching, especially their starting pitching, was under the season. I didn't expect it to be so really good. And now it's Barrios has been pitching good. Who else? Kyle Gibson, he's been pretty good, and he's been able to manage the bullpen very well. So, I don't know, it's tough selection to make for the Manager of the Year there, but I think right now I'd give a slight advantage to Boone, all bias aside, just because of all the injuries they've had. They've had to get through all those injuries, and he's done a really good job.
Yeah, I agree with you about Boone, but I didn't pick him because I wanted to be a little different. Normally, I pick the manager whose teams overachieve the most, and Rocco Baldelli is my runner-up. But I have to give props to Chris Woodward of the Texas Rangers. I thought that team was going to be a dumpster fire this year, but they're right there in the American League wild card race, and who saw that coming? I certainly didn't. So Chris Woodward gets my due. Lance Lynn and Mike Minor definitely have overachieved this year in that rotation. I think those guys regress a little bit. Joey Gallo was hurt, and they played well while Gallo was hurt, and they're still over 500. To me, that's just great, and Woodward has to be my choice for right now, although I do not expect the Rangers to hang around much longer. So right now, I'm going to say Chris Woodward.
Yeah, I like that pick too. I kind of forgot about them even, but now that you mentioned that, he'd probably be pretty close by there for my picks as well. So yeah, definitely solved.
Yeah, I'm really impressed with the Rangers this year.
Yeah.
National League Manager of the Year. This was a bit tough one for me because there's a lot of teams in my mind that are either A, overachieving, or B, underachieving, that are hanging around in the wild card race with all this parity in that league. And then the Dodgers are just so much better than everybody else. So who's your pick?
My pick was Torey Lovullo of the Diamondbacks, just because, Diamondbacks I definitely think they've overachieved. After trading away Goldschmidt, losing Corbin, A.J. Pollock, and I didn't expect really anything from them this season, and they've been able to stick in the wild card race. Right now, they're only a game and a half back of the second wild card, which right now is the Phillies holding that. But obviously, they're not going to catch the Dodgers. The Dodgers are just way ahead of everybody else, as you said. But them being able to hold in there, even with losing key players from last year's team, it's just been. I think it's been really impressive to see that.
Yeah, I think that's been impressive too. That's a good call there. I'm going to go with Brian Snitker. A lot of people thought that the Braves were going to take a step back this year. I was among those people that did not think that. And even the Braves are even better than I expected them to be. They've really gotten a lot out of their young pitching. Austin Riley's come up and contributed for them, and I really like Snitker. And it's funny because last year, before the 2018 season, I predicted that Brian Snitker would get fired and that Joe Girardi would be the manager of the Braves. Obviously, that prediction was a bad one. I just didn't think the Braves were going to be good last year. They surprised me and made the playoffs and won that division. And I picked them to win the division again this year because I thought that their young pitching would improve and then they make a move, which they did with Dallas Keuchel. But they've been even better, like I said, than I expected them to be. So I'm going to give it to Brian Snitker and give him some recognition for holding this thing together. And I think there's a chance that they get pushed in the second half by the Nationals. How about you? What do you make of the Nationals?
Yeah, I've said that on my own pod as well. I think the Nationals are actually going to end up winning that division. I think they're going to go on a huge run in the second half. I think everything's going to come together for them, and I think the Braves definitely have a chance of kind of collapsing a little bit as well. I think they've having just a really good first half so far, and then I think they've kind of like outplayed what they expected. So I think they're going to end up having a second half like everybody expected them to have in the first half.
Yeah. Let's do second half awards. I like doing this. I just think it's fun. It doesn't necessarily mean that the player will particularly win this award. But, like, for example, the Cy Young of the first half was Hyun-Jin Ryu. We don't think Hyun-Jin Ryu is going to end up winning the National League Cy Young. And then the other good example of this is in 2012 when Chase Headley had that big second half and he did not win the MVP. So that's just a fun example that I like to bring up to my podcast guests all the time when talking about second half awards. So who's your second half American League MVP?
As we talked about before with Mike Trout, I think he's going to have, just as impressive in the second half. I think he ends up pulling away with that going way. Like, obviously right now he's pretty much way ahead of everybody else. I think he stays that way and he wins another MVP. obviously every year he's in the running, and I think this year he actually does win again.
I think he does win again too, potentially, but I'm not so sure. But my second half MVP, like I said, this player doesn't particularly have to win the award. It's just the MVP of the second half. I'm going to go with Aaron Judge. He was obviously hurt in the first half of the year, and I think he's poised for a monster second half. And I think there's a chance that he gets the 35 homers, and everybody's just in awe over him. And I think there's a chance that he supplants DJ LeMahieu as the team's MVP if he has such a big second half, like I think he will. How about the second half National League MVP?
I'm actually going to go with Yelich for this one. I think he ends up staying where he's been, and I think maybe Bellinger falls off a little bit, but I think he'll end up putting up really good numbers again. And kind of like last year, he came out and all of a sudden went off in the second half, and that's how he ended up winning the MVP. But I think he does that again, and he ends up maybe not winning the actual award, like whole season award, but I think he will be, the MVP of the second half.
That won't surprise me, but I'm going to go with Nolan Arenado as the second half MVP. Like I said, I don't think he'll win the award. I just think that he's poised for a big, big second half, playing in Coors Field, and against teams that I think are going to possibly regress in the second half, like the Diamondbacks and the Giants a lot. Like, I could totally see Nolan Arenado going absolutely haymaker in the second half of the season, carrying the Colorado Rockies offense. So I'm going to go with Nolan Arenado for the second half MVP. How about second half American League Cy Young? To me, I have an easy choice here.
Okay, so I think I'm going to go with Garrett Cole of the Astros. I had Verlander for the first half for that, and then I'm going with another Astro, Garrett Cole. I think he's just going to go off. He's going to go absolutely bananas in the second half, and I think he's going to potentially even overtake Verlander as their ace. And first half he did pretty good as well, and I just think he's going to have even better second half and kind of carry the Astros to, not really carry them because they're obviously going to win that AL West, but I think he's going to push them even farther ahead of the competition.
That won't surprise me. I actually had Garrett Cole winning the Cy Young before the season. That's a really good call. I'm going to go with Chris Sale of the Red Sox. To me, there's just a lot of bad luck for him in the first half, and some of the numbers suggest that. So I'm going to say that Chris Sale helps the Red Sox in the second half and looks like the guy that we saw him in the first half of last year before he got injured. So I'm going to go with Chris Sale for my second half American League Cy Young. How about second half National League Cy Young?
Let's see. That's kind of a tough one. I know I kind of want to go with Scherzer again for that, but I don't know. I feel like he might not have as good of a second. As good of a second half as he had first half. And I definitely don't want to go with Ryu. Because I said before he's going to fall off a little bit. So sorry, I just got to think for a second.
No, it's all right. It's a tough one, but I'm actually going to go with Scherzer because he's just been on an incredible run, and I just think that guy's on a mission. He wants to carry the Nationals to the playoffs. So I'm going to take Max Scherzer for the second half Cy Young and potentially overtakes Ryu in the as the favorite to win the award. So I think this pick of Max Scherzer will probably be the pick that ends up ultimately winning one of the awards. So I'm going to go with Max Scherzer for mine.
Yeah, that's definitely solid. And I'm going to kind of go on a different route here. I'm actually going to go with Walker Buehler of the Dodgers, another Dodger besides Ryu. And I think in the second half he kind of overtakes Ryu as their best pitcher. And obviously the Dodgers are, as we talked about, they're going to win that NL West easily. And I think some of their second-tier pitchers are going to end up having good seasons, and I think Buehler's going to be one of them.
I agree with that call. I think Buehler does overtake Ryu as the best pitcher on that team, especially down the stretch. I love Walker Buehler. I think that he was a little off in the first half, especially with a few starts against some good teams. Like, he struggled in Colorado, and I wasn't really impressed. And then I remember he had a bad start against the Cardinals earlier in the year. But he's somebody that I think is trending in the right direction. That's a really good call. And I think the second half American League Rookie of the Year, we agree it's going to be Vlad Jr. So how about the National League?
The National League, I think it's again going to be Alonso. Just as you said before, it's kind of almost a runaway award. I mean, a runaway for him right now for that Rookie of the Year. I think he'll fall off a little bit and not have as great as second half, but he'll definitely keep putting up great numbers. You know, be the only or one of the only bright spots of the Mets team. Another guy to keep in mind though, for sure, is Tatis Jr. of the Padres. He had a pretty good first half, but he did suffer to an injury, so that kept him out. So I think if he stays healthy, he could definitely contend for that Rookie of the Year. He's a great defensive shortstop as well, and he definitely has the bat. And he's one of my favorite players in the league besides Yankees. He's one of my favorites.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Tatis. My second half NL Rookie of the Year, I'm going to go with Austin Riley just to go off the board a little bit. He's shown a lot of potential with the Braves, and I think that there's a chance you'll be seeing him playing third base more than Josh Donaldson in the second half of the season, because I'm not sold that Donaldson's going to be healthy. So I'm going to say Austin Riley's your second half National League Rookie of the Year. Let's go to talk about the trade deadline. Who do you think is a surprise player that's going to be traded?
That's a tough question.
I have a good one. I think it's going to be Whit Merrifield of the Royals, because no one's really talking about him as a trade chip, but to me, they have a lot of prospects coming up that are middle infielders, and Merrifield to me is somebody that can help a contender go over the top. So I think that they trade away Whit Merrifield and improve their farm system even more, and I think they can get a monster haul for him. What do you make about that?
Yeah, that's definitely a good one to pick, and yeah, they definitely would get a pretty good haul from him. Seeing that he's been one of their best hitters this season. Obviously, he started off with that hitting streak from last season, having it over 30, and he's been keeping it up after that even. So yeah, I like that pick for sure. Trying to think of a good one, another good surprise one. It's kind of tough to think about.
Yeah, that is a tough one. I know Scherzer would have been the candidate if the Nationals were out of the race. I'm trying to think of any ones that... Maikel Franco's interesting. I've heard some rumblings that the Phillies are trying to move off from him because he really hasn't lived up to their expectations. But to me, he's actually had a pretty good year for Philly. Like, he's hitting some home runs for them, and he's been better in my opinion. So I don't think that one's going to happen. I'm trying to think of... I know Clint Frazier wouldn't be a surprise to me. And I'm talking about mainly sellers in terms of surprise players traded. Like, we have one every year that happens, like a surprise player that nobody sees coming. And we have that every year in every sport at the deadline, too. And so I'm trying to think of another good one other than Merrifield. I suggested Jose Abreu to somebody, but they don't see it happening.
Oh, yeah, I was actually about to mention that.
That's funny.
I kind of actually think they can potentially trade him. I think they just this past draft they drafted Andrew Vaughn, who was probably their future first baseman. Obviously, he's not going to see the majors for a couple seasons, but I think potentially they can get a pretty good haul for Abreu, especially since he was just in the All-Star game. Yeah, right.
Was he in it? Yeah, he was.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And then he did have a pretty good first half, and so I think they would get a pretty good haul from him in this. They have a good young core. They definitely have a good future, so I think they should definitely try to get some more pieces from him.
that's not a bad pick. I would consider that your pick because you just said you were thinking about him. So yeah, that's a good call. That was almost my pick, but I decided to go with Whit Merrifield because of the Abreu train is kind of picked up a little bit, but I just don't see many fits for Abreu because to me he's more of somebody that could DH rather than play first base. I mean, who could use him? Oakland? Would Oakland be a good fit for Abreu?
Yeah, I can see that.
Tampa Bay? I feel like Oakland and Tampa Bay are two teams to look out for Abreu. Two small market teams that could use some help at first base DH. So don't rule that out. I like the Rays fit better for Abreu than the Oakland Athletics fit. How about you?
Yeah, I think he would be a better fit with the Rays too, and that kind of scares me as a Yankees fan too. It just they definitely need help in the offense category. They've only had a couple good consistent hitters for the season, so I think if they add him, they can definitely be a scary team to look out for, in the playoffs if they make it there. So a guy like him definitely be good for their lineup.
Yeah, I agree with you about that one. How about the Yankees trade acquisition? Who would you like to see in pinstripes for our beloved Bronx Bombers in terms of a starting pitcher?
I've been really on the Trevor Bauer train. I think he would be a really good piece for the Yankees to get. They mentioned it a couple of days ago that they're going to try to go for him, and that's obviously if the Indians do trade him, because they're obviously still in the playoff hunt right now. So we'll see what happens. But I would definitely love to see him in pinstripes. People say his antics, some of the Twitter antics, he goes off on some of these things and says things like that people don't always agree with, but I don't think that really matters. It's off the field stuff. I don't think that would really affect anything to me. I think you have to focus more on what he could do on the mound, and he would be a really good pitcher for the Yankees, I believe.
I do like Trevor Bauer, and I think he'd be a great fit here. But he has a 3.81 postseason ERA, and I get it. That's a small sample size. But I'm a big fan still of Madison Bumgarner. And to me, if a contender trades for him, I think he'll be rejuvenated. I really, really do. Kind of like Justin Verlander in 2017. He was good on the Tigers in 17, but not great. He became great once he went to Houston. So I think that Madison Bumgarner, to me, is number one on my list because I just think that he'd thrive on a contending team like the Yankees, especially under pressure. And yes, it's been a while since he's been in the postseason, but to me, he's just been stuck on this bad Giants team over the last few years, and I just think that he needs a bit of a change of scenery. He's in a contract year, he's pitching for a new contract, so I'm going to say Madison Bumgarner as my pick, as much as some of these stats suggest that a resurgence isn't really likely. So I'm going to go with Madison Bumgarner on that one. What do you make about Mad Bum?
Yeah, that's definitely a good pick too. That was kind of my second one, and I do agree with you there with him being, if he goes to the Yankees, to be rejuvenated, and it's just, I think he just needs to have that playoff atmosphere again. I just kind of think he's been pitching to how bad his team is. I think with a good team and in the playoffs again, he'd go on a run. I think he'd be the piece the Yankees would need to, go all the way and beat the Astros. He definitely can do what Verlander did in 2017.
Yes, I'm totally with you on Bumgarner, and I just think that whoever trades for him, really, I'd put money on them to win the World Series, unless it's like the Twins or something, because I think he would be a good addition in Minnesota, but I just think that they need more than just an ace, the Minnesota Twins. I'm talking if he went to Houston, that puts them over the top. New York, obviously. Dodgers, I don't see him going there because obviously that's their rival, and they don't need a starting pitcher. They need bullpen help. I think he can put the Brewers over the top, the St. Louis Cardinals. I think the Cubs could be a dark horse for him, or even the Boston Red Sox. But wherever he goes, other than maybe the Twins, I could see him pushing them over the top. And don't rule out the Atlanta Braves either for Bumgarner. How about your second half bold prediction? That's the last thing we're going to do. The second half bold prediction of the baseball season.
Okay. See, I don't want to make anyone mad by making any of these predictions, but my bold prediction is that the Cubs and Red Sox both miss the playoffs.
Oh my goodness, wow. That's actually, you know what? That's actually more likely than people think. Like, the reason why I had that reaction is because I wasn't expecting you to say that. Although now they think about it, it's more likely than people are giving credit for, because the Cubs struggled going into the All-Star break, and the Red Sox, if the season were to end today, are not even in the postseason. My second half bold prediction, I don't think Mike Trout wins the MVP. I just think that the trend baseball's been going in with the MVP as best player on the best team, especially in the American League. The last 2 years, we saw Mookie Betts win it last year. The year before, we saw Jose Altuve win it, and that's your case for DJ LeMahieu, because he's having just as good as a season as Jose Altuve did in 2017. So that's your DJ case right there. I do not think it will be DJ LeMahieu either. I don't know who it's going to be, but I don't think it's going to be Mike Trout or DJ LeMahieu. I think somebody is going to pull a Yelich from last year and get hot and win the AL MVP. It could be JD Martinez. It could be Aaron Judge. It could be George Springer or Alex Bregman. Hey, you know, I'm going to say it's Alex Bregman that wins the AL MVP. That's going to be my bold prediction of the second half of the season. I was going to say Aaron Judge, but that's Yankee girl coming out of me a little bit. So I'm going to say Alex Bregman wins the AL MVP as my second half bold prediction. What do you make about that one?
Yeah, I like that. Actually, Bregman was probably even in my top 5 for the MVP, so I definitely like that one.
Yeah, I like that one too. So I'm going to go with Alex Bregman. And a bonus bold prediction that I said to my previous guest, I think for the second straight year you'll see a game 163 in the National League, but this time I think it'll be the Washington Nationals and Max Scherzer going against Herman Marquez and the Rockies, and the Rockies defeat the Nationals, and the Nats have yet another disappointing quote-unquote playoff loss. And I put quote-unquote because to me game 163 does have a playoff feel to it. So it was good to have you on today. Maybe I'll have you on after the trade deadline and we'll analyze all the moves.
Yeah, that sounds good.